Good to see everyone. My name is Vincent, Yellow Old Woman, and
Butch Wolfleg.
Butch Wolfleg, and just want to acknowledge all of you for joining us once again. And we've been having these video shoots since way back when, June?
Yeah.
Yeah, June. And we've been talking about residential school. Ever since the discovery of the 215 in Kamloops. And so I just want to thank a couple people, first of all, here at BCHP, and for allowing us to participate, to help in any way we can to let people know about residential school. And then also our sponsors. We have sponsors, and Butch will be talking about that later on, how much they are really needed to keep us going and so forth. After Butch introduces himself, we will introduce who these people are sitting here.
Okay, Nisrando Kosovatis. Hello, my name is Butch Wolfleg, a residential school survivor from the 50s at Old Sun School, which is now Old Sun Residential School, which is now the Old Sun College. We've been on these webcasts here for a while, and so you can check back through the BCHP website if you missed some of those sessions. I'm pretty sure they have them in their archive, and you can go back into those. But today we're honoring what's going to be happening tomorrow as a result of what Vincent just mentioned in what happened in Kamloops. They discovered 215 unmarked graves. Maybe just a little background from our end. Phyllis Webstad from the Williams Lake band. It's hard to say their name. They have their traditional name now, just like here at Siksika, used to be known as Blackfoot Reserve number 146. And when she went to residential school, her grandmother had bought her a nice orange shirt to wear to school. And when she got there, it was taken away from her, and of course had to go through the routine of getting her hair cut and been given a uniform to wear and the numbers that go with that. And so she always remembered that day. And in 1973, she first spoke about it, and that's 40 years, over 40 years ago. And then 40 years later, in 2013, she recounted the story again. And when these these unmarked graves were discovered, that became the calling card and the symbol of truth and reconciliation for Indigenous people regarding residential school survivors, of which most of our children and grandchildren did not have to go through that. Although some of my older children went to day school, and there's still a big issue about that because they were still subjected to some draconian educational methods. So my grandchildren have not experienced this, and so with me beginning to share my stories, I guess that's the main thing that some people actually say, what can we do in regards to truth and reconciliation? Well, you can. We're survivors. There's a lot of us, and you should make a point, not just tomorrow, but from here on. Learn all you can from the survivors, and a lot of us have died off over the years, and the stories need to be heard, so you can get a for real experience about their just like what me and Vincent went through in residential school. So that was just a quick background onto that. So I'll get Vincent to share what we've set up here in, with our broadcast today. Vincent?
Thank you, Butch. You know, Butch Wolfleg, it's true, we both went to residential school, and I've known him since we were just young kids growing up. We played hockey and lived up west with him while we were neighbors. And so we've known each other most of our lives. And so I know him pretty well. And when I first got elected into leadership, he got elected too. Then he took R&R from leadership for I don't know how many years, but then he got back on after his R&R and got elected. And in the meantime, I was chief and so forth. You know what happened yesterday?
What?
I was home minding my own business.
Yeah. Same thing happened to me too.
Okay, somebody came and knocked on my door, and we have some people going around our res here, and what happens is they're promoting tomorrow the TRC Truth and Reconciliation Day, Orange Shirt Day, and so people came, and that was nice. I liked that. I thought I would let you guys see that, how the nation here in Siksika is trying to put the word out to everybody, and so me and Butch got one.
Yeah, and just to describe the symbol
Go ahead.
quickly, well, of course you got the feather and the Every Child Matters. Over here you got the Blackfoot, both feet. And then you've got the symbol in our syllabics, our symbols, our drawings about the Blackfoot. That's our Blackfoot symbol. And that, of course, is encased in a heart, symbolizing our love. And so that's what this is all about. So I've got mine displayed right on my picture window, so everybody's going to see that. And it's a way of remembering, and don't ever forget. That's our message today.
So if you didn't get one from your leadership, from your band office, phone them. Tell them this is what Siksika is giving out to their members. I think it's the survivors and the elders. But anyways, we're very thankful for what they're doing. Tomorrow, Butch, you're busy. What are you doing?
I'm going to be assisting Siksika family, Siksika Health. They're doing a walk and they're doing a ride and a run from the arbor, from the Gordon Yellowfly Memorial Arbor. Some people will be riding horses, some people will be running, and they'll be going up towards the Osan College, used to be the residential school, and there'll be meetings of the people that'll be walking from there, and they'll be walking to the Elders Lodge, and from there, everybody's going to go across to the park, across from the band administration, the mall, and there'll be some speakers there, some remembrances, some honoring, and so forth. So that's going to be done. And later on at 2 o'clock at the West Daycare Center, they're going to be gathering there also with Siksika Family Services, making a day there to honor residential school survivors and some young people displaying their talents. So that will be at the West Daycare Center from 2 to 6. The thing happening down at the Arbor, it'll start at 8:30 in the morning for the riders and the runners. And we'll be meeting up at the Elders Lodge, where they'll be meeting the elders and so the people that are going to be joining them for that short walk to the park. So that's going to be a full day of honoring, and that's our way of taking this day to remember and also to honor residential school survivors.
Thank you, Butch. You know, before we get into what we're supposed to talk today, I just want to thank Nixie PCHB for the hard work that you're doing. The technicians been very helpful, and if you have any information that you require, anything about residential school, like we said before, we're not experts, but we're survivors. We are the ones that are as real as it can get. We were there. We were the walls of the residential school. We saw what happened, heard what happened, and some bad stuff happened to me. So anyways, some people have been emailing BCHP, and thank you for that, and let them know that they're doing a good job. Pat them on the back, and they don't know what you guys are thinking and so forth. I understand there's people from Ontario and Quebec and some from BC, and then there's some students in the classroom. The teacher has put it on their screen, whatever they got in their classroom. Thank you, kids, for joining us. Butch, I was, the last time we were here, you mentioned about a Jewish lady that came to your school.
Yeah.
And how impact. And to this day, her story still made an impact in your heart and in your life, and just changed you in a good way, in a better way. So I thought that was good, and the people can look for that.
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
I think in a way it was a kind of an awakening for me, that there was something like that could happen.
yeah,
And it sort of bring a new light to what was happening with the Second World War regarding fighting the Germans and their Aryan nation goals. And
Yeah.
so I really respected my social studies teacher for being able to do that.
yeah,
I don't know if she was allowed to do it, but that Jewish lady really made an impact on me, and we seen her tattoo
oh,
on her arm that she had. They were all tattooed with numbers, just like we were all issued numbers. It's a good thing they didn't tattoo us, and
yeah.
otherwise that would really make an impact. Because I know
You were
there's some,
17.
yeah, because some people are still quite skeptical about this.
Yeah.
Even our own
That's what we're going to talk about.
young people. Okay.
And so I appreciate that you sharing that. So you guys can find that in our last episode. You know, today is the day before the Truth and Reconciliation, Thursday tomorrow, Orange Shirt Day. And the reason I talked about that story is because many stories are going to be told across Canada, literally across Canada, and starting from down east, all the way to Vancouver Island, all the way up north to the Inuvics, and everywhere across Canada is going to be honoring the survivors and those that went through and those that never made it home. Stories are going to be shared, and people are going to hear some very emotional stories tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be speaking in the morning at Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. Those of you that are living in Calgary, get a hold of the school, Google it, phone the school for information, what time the event starts, and then 3 o'clock I run down to Siksika, then I join Butch at the
West
Daycare Center, and I'll be speaking there. And then when I'm done, it's West Daycare, Then I'll be running up to Strathmore, ended out there in the evening. We start at 7 o'clock with the New Blood play. So I'll be on the road. I have 2 people that are going to be following me, making sure I'm okay, and I have food, coffee, and everything.
And just as a note here, that New Blood is based on Vincent's memories of residential school. And so they made a play about that, which Vincent represented the residential school survivor, all of us residential school survivors, and they made it into a play that has been growing new life since this issue came up about the unmarked graves. So there have been places that have just recently honored to be at that at the play. The last one was at Wetaskiwin, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wetaskiwin, yeah.
so now they're going to have it in Strathmore. Where in Strathmore?
At the high school,
At the high
Strathmore
school, and that's
yeah.
where it originated.
Yeah,
There was a teacher there. What was her name again?
Deanna Birch.
Deanna Butch had this vision of creating a story through drama, through dance, through songs, reflecting back on Vincent, the Yellow Woman's experience at residential school.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
It might be just he might be the person named, but he represents all of it, all of the
everybody,
survivors.
everybody, and that's the way we wanted to portray that, and which is good. And it's a powerful, moving story, and we're tentatively booked for Leduc. We'll be heading up there. Those of you in Edmonton, please make your way over to Leduc. If you want to know more, where a new play's going, New Blood, where it's going. Google Strathmore High School, and I'm pretty sure they'll give you the information. And it's the longest play in that school.
Yeah,
It's the longest play.
and also Peter Gabriel,
Yeah.
the renowned
Oh yeah, world renowned.
pop singer there. He dedicated a song for that.
Yeah, and he endorsed it.
He endorsed a song, one of his songs for this play and for this depiction.
Yeah.
So that's some pretty high-powered
Oh yeah.
sponsorship and representation there.
And we're talking to the Calgary Board of Education, and now we're going to St. tomorrow, and so people are wanting to know. It's going to be emotional today, and hopefully I can keep my composure. Butch, these 2 chairs represent the people that never made it home. So we wanted to welcome them so you people can see these people. And symbolically, they're saying they found us. And so tomorrow there'll be a lot of speeches, and they'll be talking about, I think it's up to 6,000 graves that they've
Just
discovered.
about 6,000.
6,000, yeah. And so these graves, these children, Namipukaya, and they've been speaking from the graves, and finally, and the survivors, we've been telling people with authority, there's some graves there. Something happened to these kids when they went to residential school, and nobody believed us. That leads us to the Truth and Reconciliation 94 calls to action.
Yeah.
And it was in June, 6 years ago in Ottawa. They came out with the it weighs, when you put all those books together on a table, it weighs 25 pounds, I'm told. And the recommendations, the call to actions, and it was a very historical day. when it came out. The Prime Minister was there, and the National Chief was there. The cabinet ministers were there, and then the people that did the hard work for 6 years, Murray Sinclair and Justice Murray Sinclair, and I forget his title, Willie Littlechild, lawyer. He's a lawyer. I think he's justice. And then the third person was Dr. Marie Wilson. Were there when they finished the good work, the hard work, and they had to sit through for 6 years of hearing the stories of the survivors and what happened to them in residential school, what happened to them and what they saw, what they heard. And Murray Sinclair said, one of the things that he said, he was kind of prepared to hear what the people, the survivors were going to share with him. He said, but when they talked about the little kids dying and never being seen afterwards after that, he said that really hit hard. And now today they're finding these unmarked graves. And so tomorrow you're going to be hearing about that. And 94 calls to action. You can Google that information. And one of the things that you're going to find out, the Prime Minister said, and the National Chief and the 3 commissioner members said that this is not a First Nation issue. It's a Canadian issue. So in other words, we have to all work together. We got to reconcile to each other, and we got to move forward in a good way. And one of the things that just blew me away when the Prime Minister was speaking, and he said that he went to school. I don't know where he was raised, Montreal or somewhere over there in that area. He said as a young boy, he went to good schools. They were very good schools, in his words. And he said when he got to, the teacher got to the social studies in respect to the First Nation history and what happened to First Nations across Canada, Métis, Inuit, all across Canada, what happened to them. And Justin Trudeau, when he was a little boy, listening and wanting to hear what the teacher was going to say about First Nations. And this is what blew me away. The teacher said something like this. You guys can Google this and get the exact word. The teacher said, we're just going to skip this. This is not important. And so our Prime Minister never was taught when he went to school. So that spoke volumes to me that it wasn't never taught. And even though people knew about it, but they never taught that in the schools, in the public schools. On the reserves, we shared with our children, our grandchildren, what happened in residential school, but outside the boundaries of residential school, of reserves, there was very little information given to children. And this what the Prime Minister also said. He said he's going to do what he can that the history, and in particular with the residential school, that it will be taught in the public school, in elementary, in high school, post-secondary. Like tomorrow I'm going to a post-secondary education institution to share my story. He said, I'm going to encourage these people. So what the the Prime Minister was saying was that it's a Canadian issue and we got to deal with it and we got to get the information, we got to hear the stories, and then and we got to all work together to make sure that this never happens again. And the chairman, Murray Sinclair, said it so well last week, just a few days ago. I was listening to him on like I follow him religiously. I just follow him wherever he goes on the media. And he said, he was asked a question, being the chairman of the commission and so forth, what do you think of the Truth and Reconciliation next week, like tomorrow? And he said he's glad it's been recognized, the Truth and Reconciliation. He said it's a start. He said it's a long ways to go yet, before we get there. And I want to have Butch share a little bit before I turn it over to him. One of the things that I really want to share with people is the reason that I wanted Butch to share that Jewish testimony of this lady sharing in his class when he was a young boy and how it impacted. There are people that denied the Holocaust. And at the same time, there are people today in Canada that denied whatever happened at residential school. There are people here today in Canada that are teachers that don't even want to teach about residential school and the impact of residential school in the lives of people across Canada. And so I'm very thankful for those schools that have stepped up to the plate. And in particular, like off the reserve I'm talking about, I'm thankful for Strathmore in our neighborhood that has taken up the responsibility to share the story of residential school and to the children. And I just hope that they continue. I think they showed that play over 150 times. And it sells out everywhere it goes. And I've been promoting it. And I've been promoting it. And I'd like to see this play go to all the areas in Calgary, the schools and the theaters, and we're not getting anything out of it. The only thing that we're doing is to tell the story of what happened in the residential school so people can hear it, simply because there are people that refuse to believe. There are people that refuse to acknowledge that this really happened, and they're refusing to teach those things about First Nations in the classroom. So I'm thankful for those classrooms that are viewing this, and we just applaud you and thank you for that. There are 94 calls to action, and it's going to take us, I don't know how long, for me and Butch to talk about all those actions that are required. And so I'm thankful that he's here to help us in a little bit. And like we said before, we're not experts, we're not lawyers, we're not doctors, but we're survivors. It really happened to us, and hear our stories so that it will never happen again. Our kids don't have to go through that again. Our grandkids don't have to go through, our great-grandkids don't have to go through that.
Yeah, just reflecting back on that, the Jewish experience that I had, and started to really study what happened with the Jewish people, especially in Germany. And there was 6 million of them that were killed off. And that's a staggering number of people that get killed off. And this woman was represented one of many survivors of that. And in your history books, that is part of the history, is learning about that. And in today's world, Germany has turned 180 degrees on that, and they will not allow any kind of prejudice, discrimination of minorities, and especially from their citizens. And they've even outlawed Nazi symbols and any kind of a reflection back on that regime at the time that was trying to take over the world. Think about that. They were trying to take over the world. And just baffles my mind what might have happened to us even here in Canada. So that in itself is very, and there are still people being brought to justice over those actions. A lot of them took off and are hiding out in other countries, and they were brought to court regarding the genocide and the actions that they did, the pain and suffering they inflicted on these people, murdering. And that's one thing that's still, I'm not, I guess for me, there are people that are still out there that know about residential schools, and they were witness to that. And those people, I urge you to come forward, and because we can, there's the issue of people that have not been brought to justice because of this. And of course, we're up against some really big organizations, such as the churches and so forth, even though the bishop in Alberta issued an apology for the Catholic Church. But the Catholic Church still doesn't acknowledge, and even when they said they were going to make some kind of, they were going to pay back somehow, they never really put any effort into that. So those are just some of the things that are still hanging in the air over regarding this situation. And for those of you listening out there, our non-Indigenous neighbors and friends, this was such a, I guess you could say, a well-guarded secret that even our neighbors around our 3 counties of Wheatland and Newell and Vulcan, a lot of them are astounded that this thing happened right in their own backyard. And so what we're saying is you have a part to play in this, and that might allow you to start asking questions about, especially regarding the government. What are they doing about this? Because as my grandson said, how dare, there are no schools with graveyards except residential school. So you know that there was an unwritten motive for the care and non-caring that they were going to do in those residential schools, and they knew full well that there were going to be fatalities, and so that's another thing to think about. And these are the realities. The things that happen to us in residential school, those are real. You don't make up stories like that. And so as a result of that, a lot of us, even both of us, and there's still people out there that are still carrying that trauma. We got into alcohol. We got into drugs to numb the pain. Felt good for a while, but then you get back to reality. And even when you start stepping away from the drinking and the drugging and start your road on sobriety and recovery, those just don't go away because you don't drink anymore. They're still there. And that's the reason why a lot of us just drank, because there was a lot of anger and pain and things that we witnessed that we still find hard to talk about today. But just like my journey is different from Vincent's, although he got into the recovery also. My journey took me away from drinking, and all of a sudden that stuff was still there. And it was only through treatment, when I went to treatment, that these issues came up. And so from then on, I made it a point of talking to somebody about it, therapists, counselors, to take some of this load off my mind, and start to, in other words, start to move in a healthier way, rather than adding to the burden of my family and regarding the drinking and the drugging. And some families never got beyond that. A lot of our friends that were in residential school with us, they're all dead, and they didn't die nicely. They died in car accidents. They froze. They burnt up in houses. They committed suicide. They were shot or stabbed by other people through fights and stuff like that. That was their way of dealing with it when they were drunk. And some just, their body just wasted away because of all that alcohol and drug use. So, and of that, we're sort of like stereotypically looked at as for lack of a better term, the drunken Indian. And that was highlighted back in the 1960s when, you got to remember, before this, in the 60s, in the middle of the 60s, before that, Indians weren't allowed to go into bars and liquor stores. Can you imagine? But our people were making home brew and other things just to begin to numb their pain and so forth. And then when it was open to us, there was such a tragedy for a lot of our people. And so that's something that I look back on. And I am very, very thankful that my parents, also who have since passed on, they also recovered. Especially my dad. My mom was never into that. She knew early enough that was not the way to go. So she was our foundation that contributed greatly to, especially my recovery. And so that's the other piece that a lot of people don't understand and need to realize, that there is a way of an outlet which wasn't very healthy for our people that's still affecting us today. And that's why our people really latch on to stuff that'll numb the pain, such as alcohol, drugs, opioids, and so forth, so they can just cope. Of which our programs and that we have on our nations are really very diligent about working with those and trying to get our people to recovery, to treatment, and so forth. So I just thought I'd mention that part, because that is a intergenerational trauma that's been carried on. So if you grow up and your parents are drinking all the time and they split up, you just see that as that. I guess that's a normal way of living. So you follow that example, and then your children follow that example, and nowadays your grandchildren follow. So that's a cycle that has grown out of this residential school. Also, the fact that we were within the Indian Act and government restrictions, we weren't even allowed to have lawyers. We weren't even allowed to take the government to court over things that they had planned for us and so forth, that just never worked in a lot of ways. So we were under the umbrella of a very restrictive system. Even talking about passes, you couldn't leave the reserve unless you had a pass. You can't sell the grain that you've grown, the cattle and horses and livestock, any kind of poultry that you raise. You can't sell it unless the government gave you permission through their agents that were very paternalistic towards our people, such as the Indian agents and the farm agents and so forth that were placed strategically on our reserve to watch us so that we don't start living, getting too independent. So those were cycles that we're slowly growing out of. And I say slowly because there are some people that got used to that and think that that's the normal way to live. But our young people, those are the ones that are blazing a new trail for us and looking at ways of dealing with this. And I really applaud our young people that have taken that initiative. And at the same time, acknowledging that we have these issues that we have to work through.
It's very important. The key is that people need to be educated, they need to be told, and the stories of the residential school need to be shared. And otherwise, we will never be able to deal with some of the issues that are happening today. So I'm thankful tomorrow that there's a day set aside for it. It's not a holiday, it's to honor those survivors and those children that never made it home. So, and today these two chairs represent those children that never made it home. 5-year-old, 6-year-old, a boy and a girl in those graves that never made it home. And so what we're telling the people today is part of one of the recommendations in the 94 calls to action is to, the commission instructed the government to go look for those graves. And so it wasn't until in Kamloops, I think it was on their own, they discovered those graves, and it just opened the door. And so now all these schools, and here in Siksika, they'll be starting the radar to find some graves here. So what we're saying today is that the 94 calls to action, and a whole list of them that have to be done. And you cannot say that, well, it wasn't me, I wasn't there, and to try and excuse yourself from it. But we need to work together so that this will never happen again. And when you look at that, I would encourage you to go to the announcements of the 94 calls to action. It was 6 years ago, and you will hear the Prime Minister, the National Chief, and Murray Sinclair, Willie Littlechild, and Marie Wilson. Just a powerful announcement that took place. There were tears in that. It's about a 3-hour show, a 3-hour video, but you will see what I'm talking about. And some of the things that they really encourage people is to recognize that this did take place. And I'm not only talking about the Canadians, but I'm talking about our own First Nation members too. And they need to kukuyo. And ako kitsay tsikian na kay makuksa kaya kasikapi si ungsi no kukuiksi no topiksi. Those are powerful things that took place in residential school. And I like to defend those people that got abused in residential school. And I don't want my enemy to go through what I went through. And so that's what that 94 calls to action is to. And if you ever get a chance to come to BCHP, Blackfoot Historical Park when it opens up. Just phone the front desk, they'll give you the information. I don't know when they're gonna open. When they open up, they have one part of the display downstairs has to do with residential school. And so what happened, why it happened, and so forth. So I'm thankful for BCHP doing their part in respect to the 94 calls to action to make sure that the average person in Canada knows what took place in residential school. So I just want to share that with you guys, and there's more we could say about that, but I want to leave that with you. And Butch, I don't know if you got any closing.
Just one last comment. When you said this is not a holiday, and that's really quite true. My late father, Mark Wolfleg, was a World War II veteran who fought in action in North Africa, Sicily, Italy, especially in a place called Ortona with the loyal 49th Edmonton Regiment. And he was wounded just past what was known as a casino, Monte Casino. And when he came back, he always honored that day because he said the real heroes didn't come home. And I don't consider myself a hero. He remembers that day of all his comrades that are buried in different grave sites in Europe. And one of them was his best buddy, Gordon Yellowfly, of which our arbor is named after. He was buried in what's called the Moore River Cemetery outside of Ortona, where he was killed during Christmas. And so to him, it was he suffered the trauma of what he went through. And so he didn't see himself as a hero. He saw these, the people that didn't come back as the heroes. And he doesn't look at it as just another holiday. It's a day that he always told us we never forget. We'll never forget. And that's the same context that this Truth and Reconciliation should be taken. Not that we were in a war, but we were at a great disadvantage from the authorities, and that allowed this to happen to our people, especially the two representations here that never made it home. And for some of them, we may never find their graves, because a lot of them, they never buried them. A lot of them, and this is sad to say, they were just thrown in the furnace, just like those Jewish people that were taken to those crematoriums and just thrown into the oven. So a lot of our people, children that never made it home, some of them, it's been documented that some of them, that's how they ended up. They died in residential school, and they were not even a proper burial or service. They were just burnt. Maybe it was too cold to dig a grave or anything. So this stuff really is still with us today. And so we will, just like as Remembrance Day, we will never forget. And for those of you that want to do something, one of the first things I say, people say, what can I do for truth and reconciliation? Well, first, find out the truth from residential school survivors. And then take a look at reconciling that. What can you do to help, to assist that this never happens again, and that people will not forget this genocide? And that's what it was that happened for nearly 100 years. And That's the truth. And the history books, those need to be taught. When we were only 5 or 6 years old, when we were into residential school, and they never thought of us as 5 and 6 year olds that should not be punished like this, but they did. So for those of you who are worried about the young people learning about this, well, that's just a fact of the matter. Young people are very resilient. They will learn about this and they will carry this on in their lives, and hopefully have a change of heart and a change of mind to people that look different than them, that live different than them, that pray differently than they do, that speak a different language. And so that will make them what we call a proper human being.
Yeah. So these children are being hurt from the graves, and they were buried for all intended purposes. Some of them were hoping that they would never, whoever buried them would never be found. But these children, imagine, think about it. This 6-year-old boy is sitting here, maybe a 7-year-old girl here, just little kids, and now they're being discovered, and they've been found. And I wonder what they would say to you guys if they were here. You think about that. What would they say to you? What happened to them? And they would probably say, I want to go home to my mom. I want to go home to my dad. You know, all the abuse and issues and that dysfunction that Butch talked about earlier. These kids came from good homes. They were taught good values. They were taught good things from their parents. There was no alcohol involved back in those days, and these kids were raised in a good way. But the government said, kill the Indian in the child, and they opened those residential schools. You study history books, and that's why people don't want to hear that. But that's why that poem at the end, they're going to play that poem, and it's called Kill the Indian in the Child. I asked a composer to write a song, and I wanted her to use that quote that minister made over 100 years ago. He said, we will build these schools and we will kill the Indian in the child. And well, some of them, they literally did kill them, and they put them in unmarked graves. And but today, their voices are being heard. Their cries from those graves have been heard. And so people are finding out. And it's a sad legacy for Canada, but I think if we pull together, we can work together, make sure that this never happens again. And we'll see you next week, Wednesday at 2 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, we'll start the chopping into those 94 calls to action, and so that and we'll even provide you with the website, what that's all about. I'm just warning our technical people ahead of time here, so we can have those, and those are some of the things that we're going to be moving forward with, is giving you more and more information about these. And I just want to thank you for listening to us. It's still quite emotional when you talk about these the past.
Thank the sponsors.
And that's but we're resilient, and we survived. We're still surviving today, and that's something that I am very grateful for that even I moved past that experience to a point where I can help others, especially other survivors that are not willing to share their stories yet. And so those are the ones that I'm kind of concerned about, because that's a lot of information to be holding in. And that needs to be a concerted effort. I'm pretty sure, as Vincent talked about, 25 pounds of paper, I don't think that would contain all that these survivors experience in residential school. So there's a lot of work still needs to be done, and we're going to continue this. It doesn't end tomorrow, and then we don't worry about it again till next September 30th. We're going to continue, and this resurgence and this I'll call it recovery has started, and we are doing our part, and we call on our non-Indigenous brothers and sisters to do their part also in forming a nice little balance for this, so that we will never forget, and also get these stories told.
Thank you, sponsors. Appreciate your work, your contribution.
Yeah, we appreciate all that Blackfoot Crossing Historical Park has done. And this is a Blackfoot Historical Park. It's owned by the Siksika Nation, and it's run by the Siksika Nation. And they're very independent, but at the same time, they always need some outside contribution, some help, in order to better tell the story and the history, of which a lot of institutions now are starting to ask about. And so we ask you to help out, and that's another way you can work towards reconciliation, and in those kind of terms.
If you want to get a hold of us, just maybe the technician can put it up on the screen. The address for Blackfoot Historical Park, and the information there. If you want to get a hold of us, you want to contact us, and I think they would appreciate that, to know what you guys are thinking and saying. So thank you. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
6 years old on his first day of school, and emotions are running high. Mom and Dad are left home alone as he bids his parents goodbye. The shiny white building in a faraway place holds promise and a yet unknown fear. The footsteps this young boy will take on his own should have been taken with family near. The weather here is changing and dark clouds are closing in. The boy can't withstand them for long. They remind him his skin is sin. They are sinister like the weather, and like a storm that brews within, they wash away childlike innocence, trying to kill the Indian in him. They tried to kill the Indian in the child. They thought he was a savage, untamable and wild. They could not see the Creator's plan for him was the same for you and me. We are meant to walk together on the good red road of beauty. Kill the Indian in the child, they said, and to be sure those teachers tried. No language, no family, no culture. Every night he cried. A forced haircut and a cruel bath, bleaching brown skin into white. Though they tried to kill the Indian survived. Their methods were born of ignorance. Along the way, the road got twisted. The boy could not do a single thing right, no matter how hard he listened. The lessons that he learned were not about writing, literature, or math. What will it take before graduation for him to discover a welcoming path? They tried to kill the Indian in the child. They thought he was a savage, untamable, and wild. They could not see the Creator's plan for him was the same for you and me. We are meant to walk together on the good red road of beauty. Oh, Canada, you failed your people. Where did you go wrong? underneath that national anthem, you were not true, free, or strong. You built a railroad to unite this nation and sent your beautiful children to jail. They were beaten, starved, and tortured, and their future was derailed. You get 9 years for rape and drug deals, 9 years for a major crime, or 9 years in residential school to kill the Indian in the child. Generations have been affected and had to remember how to pray, to rediscover a sacred culture and find forgiveness along the way. For years, he spent nights searching for a love he couldn't find, in the walls within his prison, in the eyes that had gone blind. As he found the path to forgiveness, he could leave that pain behind. The grace he knew would save him was in his heart and not his mind. Once punished for sins like laughing, jailed in chicken coops by powers that were, we are walking again on the good red road and creating a new future. We thank the Creator for giving us life and reminding us every day that the enemy who destroyed us once is now the friend with whom we pray. The Indian in that child is the chief of his people today. He is leading his community, showing them grace along the way. They walk towards a new future in this country we all share, so that his 6-year-old grandchild will have no reason to be scared. They tried to kill the Indian in the child. They thought he was a savage, untamable, and wild. They could not see the Creator's plan for him was the same for you and me. We are meant to walk together on the good red road of beauty. Thank you, Creator.